What's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Worship Workshop. It's a little series that I'm going to do talking about how to play bass better, perhaps. Hopefully you can take something from this. I'm going to try my hardest. I thought about it very carefully. I'm going to try to do the best I can do. A lot of people has asked me, how do I do my bass lines? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm hoping that I can help you get better, help you be able to play in your church and be amazing at it and make people just have a good time playing bass and being able to feel good about playing in their church and worshiping God in that way. So, before I get started, first off, this is very, very casual. I'm not going to edit anything crazy. I'm not going to do anything. This is just, I don't have the best equipment ever. This is just me talking, you know what I mean? And I'm using PowerPoint to make my points, my slides. So, first off, they're going to last a while. They're going to last a pretty long time. Not going to say all this in every episode. I'm just saying this first time since it's the first episode. They're going to be pretty long. Hopefully not too long, but I want to try to give as much detail as I can to help people get better. Because like I said, I want people to be the best bass players they can be, because every good band, every good worship band, every anything when it comes to music has a good bass player. And that's the truth. That's the God's truth. So if you really want to improve your worship team, help everything out, and you came here to try to be the best bass player you can be, I think you're in the right place. So, without further ado, let's get right on into it. So, first off, let's talk about learning to read sheet music. Now, this isn't very important. Obviously, learning to play by ear is a very great tool. Very great tool. You need that like crazy. However, learning to read sheet music is as important, if not even more so, for at least my style of playing. And I'll get into that later. So first off, let's talk about bass tabs. Bass tabs is basically what you're seeing right here, and basically it's EADG, which is, it's going down the neck, or the whatever, going down the guitar. So it's pretty easy to read. Literally, first fret E, that's F. Then you want to learn piano chords or guitar chords, which is basically what this looks like right here. So those is really, really easy, like really easy. You know what I mean? Like G, that's just a G. You know what I mean? It's the third fret E string. You know, that's a F right there. The first fret on the E string, that's a F. If you learn those, it'll make you learn songs way easier. And just like that, when you first get into a church, you don't know any of the music, they have like 500 songs they want you to learn. All you got to do is you can have the sheet music in front of you to fall back on in case you need it. And it makes far less room for error. That's the whole point. You want as less room for error as possible, because everybody plays bad sometimes. Everybody messes up. It's just the truth. You see, I watch rig rundowns on PremierGuitar.com on their YouTube, and then I watch the Digital Tour Bus. They have like I forgot what their series is called, but it's basically a rig rundown where they talk about their gear and their guitars and stuff. And every single one of them, they have this old beat up guitar, and they'll be like, the interviewer will say, "How did that happen? What's the story behind that guitar?" And they'll be like, "Well, I had a bad show and I messed it up." So everybody has bad shows, even professionals. Everybody plays bad sometimes. So you got to try to prevent that as much as possible. Learning to read sheet music will help. Also, learning to read sheet music, all this, people always ask me about how I form my bass lines, and this whole video is going to help you kind of understand how I do it. And for me, I start out understanding the chord progression of a song. So that would be using either tabs, bass tabs, piano chords, or guitar chords, and I use those every single time, every song, no matter what. I can play by ear, and I do learn a lot of songs by ear, but every single time after I learn it by ear, I go and check the sheet music to make sure that I'm playing it exactly how it needs to be. Because sometimes, no matter how good you are, you like it'll sound somewhat right, but then when you go and look at the sheet music, it's actually a little bit different. Like say, like you'll be playing. What's a good example? I think one time I can think of that I done this personally. I was trying to learn a song to do a cover of, and I was learning it by ear. I usually learn all songs by ear first and then come back, unless I'm in church. If I'm in church, if I don't know the song, I just read the sheet music and then I use my ears for something else, which I'll get into later. But when I was trying to learn this song, and it sounded so much like a D. Like, I'm dead serious. It sounded just like a D note on bass. And in later videos, I'll help you understand the notes and where they're at on the fretboard. But I highly recommend, I didn't put that on this list, but I highly recommend you learn the notes on the fretboard, because that is very important to every bit of playing guitar or playing bass. You won't know how to read sheet music if you don't learn that. So that's very important. And you might be able to read tabs, but you won't be able to read guitar or piano sheet music. And if you do know how to read piano and guitar sheet music, it makes it all so much easier. But anyways, it sounded just like a D, like so much like a D, it was insane. And I looked on the sheet music and it was a G, and I started playing a G, and it sounded so much better. It was literally the slide. I know it sounds crazy because like a D and a G sound totally different, but like if you listen to the song, I forgot what song it was, it sounded just like a D. And long story short, I got those confused because I believe what it was is they had pads. If you don't know what a pad is, it's like a little like ambient noise that's in the background that's like makes it sound all majestic and stuff. For lack of better words, sounds all majestic. And it I think that was like in the key of G, you know what I mean? And like it sounded just like it was a G that they were playing right there. And anyways, the pads was playing a G and everything else was playing, they were playing a D. The pads was a D and everything else was a G, if that makes any sense. Anyways, long story short, what I'm getting at here is if you don't read the sheet music, there's always a little room for error. You know what I mean? No matter how good you are, there's always a little room for error. And especially in churches, you can learn a song that's like totally, like they'll be like, okay, we're going to play Jesus by Chris Tomlin. You're like, okay, let me go learn that real quick. And then you come home and you learn it by ear. You spend hours and hours and hours learning it. Make sure you got everything down by ear. And then you get there and you got to transpose it. And they have a little bit different of a chord progression because they changed it for the way that they sing. So that there makes it where you can't really rely on playing by ear. You know what I mean? Because like if you know how to read sheet music, if they change the chord progression, you can just look on the sheet music that the piano player is using or the guitar player is using, or if they have bass sheet music for you, which a lot of people do, they make separate sheet music for you. You can just look at that and there you go. It takes the guesswork all out of it, way less room for error. If something happens where you're playing and you accidentally, because you have to learn so many songs, you accidentally forget a certain part of a song, you can just fall back on the sheet music. So long story short, please learn your sheet music. This is very important for every genre of music, but especially Christian church worship music, because like I said, you play multiple songs a year. You know what I mean? Like in a year, you usually play, at least every church I've been a part of, you play different music every time you go to church. Pretty much, maybe you'll fall back on a few of them. So basically, every church usually has like 100, and it's hard to remember everything. So yeah, long story short, learn your sheet music. Very, very important to your bass playing, no matter what genre of music you play. Next, locking in with the drummer. So basically, this is very easy. Okay. Now let me take a sip of water here. This is a very easy concept, okay, but it makes so much difference, okay. So when you're playing bass, first of all, this is to understand the structure of a song, the drums and the bass is like the foundation. The drums being on the bottom and the bass is on top, right? Picture it like that. It's a cake. Drums, bass. Okay? Everything else is going to go on top of the bass. The bass guitar. Everything's going to go on top of the bass guitar. You got to be on top of the drums. You know what I mean? So everything's connecting to you and you're connecting to the drums. You with me so far? Okay? So what you want to do is you want to link all them together, but also linking with the drummer. You're like the bridge from the melody and the chords to the bass drum and to the drums. Does that make any sense at all? Hopefully I explained that well. That's how you set up anything to do with music. You want to try to capture the melody and the chords while going with the rhythm of the drums. You know? So this is how you do that. Obviously I just said you want to sync up with the kick drum. Okay? So how you do this, if something's going like if you got a bass drum that's going like, can you hear that? I can't tell if you can hear that or not. If just say you got, I'm not a beatboxer so I apologize, but if you're going, all you gotta do is go boom 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 boom, and you could, as long as you're on that, you can do as many notes as you want to. Everything that fits with that, whatever key you're playing in, you can do that. You can fiddle around, do whatever, but you got to stay with that. So, and most of the time, whenever the chords change, so does the bass drum hits down. So it'll be like Gene, Brinch, Dinch, Dinch, Dinch. You know what I mean? Like I said, I suck at beatboxing, but that's how it goes. Most of the time, there's always a bass drum hitting every chord change. So you want to try to be on time with that. I watched a workshop for, I think it was for bass, but I think it was for like the whole, a whole worship band in general. Paul Baloch, I think, I don't know how you say his name. The guy that sings "Open the Eyes of My Heart" and a couple other things like that. He's a great musician, but unfortunately, I don't know how to say his last name. Anyways, I was watching his workshop, and he was saying that the bass player, he made bass look bad, pretty much. He was saying that a bass player should just play the notes that he needs to play only, and make sure he's solid. Now, this can be good and bad. Excuse me. If you're good, alright, for the good way that is, or the good thing about that, whatever, I can't talk. The good thing about that is you stay, even if you're a horrible player, well, actually, I don't think anybody's horrible. Even if you just started out and you only know those 4 notes, you can do that and still be able to play. But if you're good, the current meta means like the current, how everybody's playing, you know what I mean? What everybody's doing. The current meta for bass is playing, not overplaying, but playing a lot of octaves and playing like a lot of scales and licks and passing notes and chord tones and everything that you can to improve the sound. You know what I mean? A bass player doesn't only play, like I said, he doesn't only play easy notes and strum once or twice to keep the bass drum in sync. He implements everything he plugs in everything into the drums. So in order to do that, you got to play the melody and the chord and everything. You got to put that together. So just make sure you're focused on the kick drum. I'll continue on what I'm saying. Just focus on the kick drum and just make sure everything's in order. And then also another way you could do this is implementing pedal tones, which is basically a good example of this would be like on Good Good Father by pretty much anybody. Pretty much the whole verse, I believe the whole verse is one note, literally one note on bass, and there's only so much you can do with that. But usually I think how it goes at least in the Casting Crowns version and the Chris Tomlin version. So pretty much every version, I believe, you don't play in the first verse, and then you come in the pre-chorus, and then of course the chorus. So that pretty much, it made tension in the song by you not playing, and I'll get into that whole thing in a minute. But by you not playing, it caused tension. So then you come in and the tension is released. You got more going on. So everything sounds good, sounds normal, and you're playing a cool bass line. And then you get to the verse 2, and it's one note. And what you do there is you want to play as much as you can, but how you pedal, how you stay on a pedal tone is you just stay there, pretty much. You can do anything in that scale, or in that key, but just make sure that you're out of the way of everything else. That's basically what a pedal tone is. Basically playing as simple as possible so you don't get in the way of anybody else. You don't use this a lot, but in worship music it's important because this is one of the parts where you don't want to overplay. There's certain situations where you want to just use a pedal tone and you want to stay on one note and just do like a couple things. Maybe like stay on one note for a little while, slide to the octave, do like a little hammer on or something, come back, you know what I mean? Just very simple. Make sure it sounds smooth and sounds very like how would you say it? Atmospheric? Is that how you say that? Atmospheric? Make sure it's just the whole thing of worship for me with a bass player is you're the atmosphere, you're the feeling, you're the emotion of the song. That's how I feel. You feel the bass. You don't really feel any other instrument other than the drums. You feel the bass drum and you feel the bass. You know what I mean? That's the feeling of the song. So whatever the song is, you want to try to harness that emotion, and basically you're feeding the emotion of the guitar into the audience, if that makes any sense. Again, I'm not a teacher or anything, but that's just the best way I can find to explain it. You are the power, you're the atmosphere, you're the ambient noise and everything. You want to try to make sure that they feel an emotion. And to do that, in some parts of the song, you gotta let your pride down a little bit, and instead of like trying to go ham and do all kind of licks and stupid crazy things, you just want to calm down and make sure people's worshiping, because that's the goal. You want people to worship, you know what I mean? And sometimes you gotta chill out, and when you chill out, people still feel the power from you doing that simple one note, but it's enough. Everybody else, maybe the guitar player can play a couple things, maybe the drummer can add like a couple extra things. Like basically it opens up room for more people to do things. So it might not make you look like the most amazing bass player ever in those certain moments, but it makes the band come together like crazy. It's basically like dynamics, which means when you basically like the volume of how you play, like where you play soft or you play harder. That's essentially what a pedal tone is. You kind of, at least for me, a pedal tone in worship means to stay on that one note while also opening the room for everybody else to come in and do what they need to do. And of course, everything is situational. Like I said, you'll pretty much know from the feeling, because it's literally, bass is so much like an emotion. It's insane. If anybody will tell you that bass is something you feel, not that you hear. And that's not entirely true, because you hear bass, especially when you do octaves and do licks and passing notes and things. But when you play bass, people feel it, and it causes like an emotion. So just remember that when you're playing bass, it causes an emotion, and people's gonna feel something. People like dance to the rhythm of the drums, but then like since you're synced with the drummer, they groove with you. You're the groove. You know what I mean? They got the rhythm. They got the head bob from the bass drum. Boom, 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 boom. But then they get the rhythm from you. You know what I mean? So just make sure you understand pedal tones and understand when to play, when not to play, when to make everything sound as smooth and as clean and as powerful as possible, because you are the power. Okay? So moving on. Let's see, let me make sure I didn't skip anything. Okay. this is how I form my bass lines. Pretty much everything goes into how I form my bass lines. That's essentially what this lesson is going to be about, although it's the top things I think you should know when you're just getting into playing worship music. But this is how I form my bass lines and my tips for forming great bass lines. First off, don't overplay. We just talked about that, so I'm not going to get into too much detail of that. But just remember, you are the feeling, you are the emotion. So whatever you're the judge of that. That's part of being creative. That's part of being a bass player. You're supposed to know. You'll feel it when you're playing. You know what I mean? There's nothing that you can really learn, in my opinion. When you're playing, you'll feel when you're supposed to slow down and all that, and that would just make you a way better bass player. You know what I mean? Sometimes playing simple and easy is better than playing a lot of notes. You know what I mean? Doing like this crazy thing and showing off your skill and speed. Sometimes it's better to just slow down and make sure everything feels right when you're in the church. You know what I mean? So just don't overplay. Of course, you can play however you like. Like I said, this is you're a bass player. Even if you just started, if you just bought a bass today and you're trying to learn, you're watching this video, you're a bass player. So you're gonna know. You're going to feel how you should portray that emotion. So, and you may be thinking too that this is a lot of thought put into something as simple as like a bass line. But the truth is, when you're doing a cover or doing anything like that, you want to try to be as original as possible. And to do that, sometimes it's kind of hard. You know what I mean? You want to try to be as original as possible, and like I said, you want a bass player really makes a band. Think about all the great bands; they all have killer bass players. So you're like a big part, whether people realize it or not. Like I said, you're the emotion, and really, it makes things easier. The more you know, the more you study, the easier it is to make a bass line. The easier it is to play. Like, it's literally like second nature. Like me, I'm not sure if you guys notice in my covers or not, but I literally don't even have to look at my guitar to play. Like, I could play with my eyes closed. I've done that before. I felt like I was like playing in church, and I felt like just, worshiping. I had my eyes closed, going back in two, and I couldn't raise my hands or anything, but I was just, I was in the zone. I was in the worship zone, and I closed my eyes. The more you know, the easier it is to play. That's all I'm going to say. And moving on. Next thing is draw from your inspiration. What this means is basically draw from your inspiration and transcribe your favorite songs. Go hand in hand. First off, you want to find a bass player that you look up to. Somebody that's a killer bass player that truly like gets your attention. You're like, man, that sounded so cool how he went from D to G. What he did right there, those passing notes, that lick, everything was just amazing, right? You want to learn that, study all his things that he does, and you want to transcribe them. So if you're, like I said, if he's going from D to G and he's doing a bunch of different stuff and you think that's cool, you want to slow down that part of the song. Go over that part of the song over and over again and write it down. Literally, I have a pen and paper right here that I transcribe every song that every musician that I look up to. Because in reality, music is like a language. Everybody says that, and bass is no different than any other instrument. You want to have a good vocabulary. And whether you realize this or not, when you're playing a certain note, you always have a certain way that you go to the next note. It depends on the style of the song, but I guarantee you will notice that you have the same tendencies to do the same thing multiple times with multiple different songs. Just next time you play it, pay attention to the pattern. And eventually you'll be like, man, I do the same thing a lot. And that's fine. A lot of people do that. But the point is you want to expand your vocabulary. So you want to learn, you want to transcribe, which means write down, learn everything that they're doing. You want to transcribe it and play it and add it to your own vocabulary. That way, say you got, I'll tell you a couple of my favorite bass players. I like Brandon Aronson. of Jesus Culture. I like Victor Wooten, Marcus Miller. I like Michael League. And I like, let's see, who else do I like? I like Chris Huffman from Casting Crowns, Tim Foreman, Switchfoot, Jesse Reeves, Chris Tomlin. I like all of them like a lot. So I usually make sure I know everything that they do. And a lot of the songs that I play when it comes to like Chris Tomlin songs, anything like that, even though it's most of the time it's not that hard to transcribe a song because it's pretty easy for the most part. But maybe I don't transcribe like the whole song. That's what the sheet music and stuff's for, and playing by ear. But there is times where they'll do like especially Brandon Aronson, he'll do a certain lick or a certain passing note. Like I said, something like he's going from D to G, and I'll be like, man, I gotta learn that. And so I'll keep rewinding that section of the song and transcribe what he's doing, and then I'll play it, and then I add it to my vocabulary. When I'm going from D to G, I might do that sometimes. You know what I mean? So a lot of people don't do that because for some reason people think that that's like copying from somebody else. But if every good bass player in the world does that, if you're going to be a good bass player, you should do that. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion, but I think like Scott's Bass Lessons, he says this all the time, and he's a very good player. He's very humble about it too. He acts like he's not that good, but he's a great player. He says that when he's playing, he could say the people that he's playing. Like he was, oh, that's a Pino Palladino. Oh, that's a I think Pino Palladino is his favorite. I like him too, but he'd be like, that's a Pino Palladino, that's a Victor Wooten, that's a Marcus Miller, that's a Bootsy Collins. Like, you get like that whole thing going on where you just have a lot of words in your vocabulary, you know what I mean? That's essentially what you want to do. That's like part of the creative process. Once you understand how they made those certain parts, how they made those certain lines, you can start to either combine two of them and then add your little sense to it and make it yours, or you can just use the knowledge that gave you and make your own. So not only do you have the one that you learned, but it helped you create one of your own. So really you just added two new fills or licks, whatever, to your vocabulary. You know what I mean? So that's definitely transcribing, and having inspirations is definitely what you want to do. A lot of people has messaged me and said that I was their inspiration, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That makes me feel good to hear that. Playing bass is like a big passion of mine. So when somebody says that I've helped them play or something like that, you guys don't even understand how it makes me feel when people say that. Even though it's just a comment and they probably don't really care that much, it's no big deal to them. They're just being like, oh, he helped me learn that song. Thank you, man. Like, it's not even a big deal to them, but to me it's a big deal. So anyways, draw from your inspiration and transcribe your favorite songs. Next would be learn scales, arpeggios, and the chord scale theory. You can look up all these. I'm not going to talk about them right now, but that will help you. Your scales and arpeggios will help you so much in coming up with bass lines, and knowing what to hit when you want to hit it. It will help you with the sounds. I have a lesson that I'm going to come out with either this week or next week. That'll be episode 2, I suppose. That'll be how to play by ear and how to learn the notes on the fretboard very, very easy. That I've learned from myself, because I'm not like the best bass player in the world, and I'm not a professional or anything like that. So I'm like a student just like you guys. And that's one cool thing about my series, is me not being a professional bass player, but still being like, I consider myself to be decent. I can tell you guys things easier than somebody that's a professional that has already known it, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? They learn it, and it's like, oh, you do this, and that's how you do it. Like, how are you supposed to learn from that? You know what I mean? So me being a student, I can help teach another student something that I learned. You know what I mean? So anyways, definitely learn your scales, arpeggios, and chord scale theory. Chord scale theory, what that is, for those of you that don't know, is basically like a combination. So if you want to do if you're playing G, you want to have 3 scales and have some arpeggios and stuff in there that you could throw in anytime you want to. And also scales, you don't have to do the same pattern over and over again. You can do, there's multiple ways you can do a scale. You already know that. There's multiple patterns you can do a G major scale or anything like that. So with that pattern, you can also think about arpeggios and different stuff like that. And you don't have to play them like in order like the pattern. You can play them any way you want to, and anything you play that's in that scale is gonna sound good. It's gonna be good passing notes. Which a passing note, for those of you don't know, it's like, for me, I call them fills. Some people might call them fills. I don't know, but basically it's when you go from, like I said, D to G. That's the example I've been using. If you go from D to G and you go D, B, A, G or something like that, the B and A would be like the passing notes. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like you're walking back. So it's like you're passing through the fretboard, so you might as well hit them. Essentially, that's what it means. But yeah, that's what the chord scale theory is. It's when you playing a note, and it basically, when you're playing a note, you visualize the scales and everything that you could do with that note. So like when you're playing a note and you know you're about to go to, say you're playing G and you know you're about to go to C, you can just visualize the scale and then maybe do a little piece of it, or just do whatever sounds right, you know what I mean? Just do anything that's in that scale and go to D. You know what I mean? It makes life way easier. And really, after you've learned all of these things, and the more you learn, it's more like just plugging in what you know to make things sound good. Really, bass playing or any instrument, from what I've gathered, isn't that hard when you really think about it. Like, it's hard to learn it, but then after you learn a certain amount of things, that's the reason I made this video, so you can know what to implement, not what to implement in your plan, and what to like look up, what to search and learn. Once you learn these things, you can just plug in whatever you want to, and it's going to help you and everything. Like if you're going from the D to G, you can plug in that thing that you transcribed, that bass line that you transcribed. You can plug in everything and then add your own creative twist to something else and make your own thing. And that's essentially how you do bass lines. You definitely want to, I have here, you want to form your lines around the basis of accent and the vocal melody, as well as the melody of the piano and guitar. So with the scales and with the knowledge of the scales, the licks and stuff that you transcribed, the fills, the passing notes, everything, with all that in mind, you can use that to accent the vocal melody and the melody of the guitar. So say the guitar goes, you're playing a bass line, and in the middle of the bass line, the guitar goes dee-dee-dee. You can do the dee-dee-dee on bass, and it makes things sound like great. Like you can basically, there's different things you can do that accent, and that's not like the only thing you can do. You can also do, like if they're doing the dee-dee-dee, you could do something else that just makes their little melody thing that they did right there. You can make that sound even better by playing something else. Maybe like just playing a solid whole note or something, you know what I mean? Not even like strumming 100 times or doing like any kind of lick or scale or fill, whatever, while they're doing that. Just maybe it's like if you go to another key or another note real quick and then go back, it accents it. So it makes it sound way better. And also, you can use that with the vocal melody too. Say if they're doing like a run or something, they're doing anything with the singing, you can copy what they're singing. That's honestly what I listen to when I'm learning a song by ear. I don't really listen to any other instrument. I listen to the vocals, and I play along to the vocals, which is pretty much what everybody else does. So that's like a big help. Just focus on the vocal melody and accent in them, because what makes a good bass player is when he can make everybody else look good. And as crazy as that sounds, it's like, oh, you gotta most people think you got to do like all kind of crazy technique to be a good bass player. But to be a good bass player, like I said, you just make everybody else look good, and in the process, it makes you look good. Because at the end of the day, if you accent things the way you're supposed to, you're going to be playing like a lot of notes. You're going to be moving up and down the fretboard, and you're going to look good. And then not only are you going to look good, you're going to sound good, and your whole band is going to sound good, because that's what you are. The bass player is kind of like a support. You know what I mean? Pretty much everything needs a support. So if you support the bass or the melody and everything and stay in sync with the drummer, you're going to sound like literally like amazing. You're going to sound great. And that's what makes bands good. Every single band that you listen to, they got a killer bass player. Lastly, we've been talking for a while now. So lastly, the next thing is to practice slowly and put work into your practice. Basically, what this means is what it says, practice slowly. A lot of people don't want to when they're learning scales, even me. If I learn something new, I'll do it real fast, and I'm like, well, I learned that, let me move on to the next thing. But you shouldn't do that. You should keep doing it over and over again, because what you're doing is training your mind on how to do it, right? And you understand how to do it, but you want your hands to, like, different scales and different exercises, right? You practice by doing exercises and different scales and different things that make you a better bass player. You do those, and when you're doing an exercise, you be like, okay, you do this. Okay, I'm good. I've done the exercise for today. But you're supposed to do it slow, because that exercise is training a certain part of your playing. So even if you don't realize it, it's forming good technique. So you want to practice slow in order to do that. And lastly, put work into your practice. What that means is to make sure you watching this video just shows that you're putting work into your practice. You're trying to do anything you can to learn something, you know, and that's what you want to do. A lot of people, they practice the same songs over and over and over again, and they don't learn anything new. This is like, it's good, like if you have like a whole set list that your church plays, whether it's like 300, 400, stupid 100, 150, 2, however many songs it is, you definitely want to practice those songs and practice them as much as you can. But you also want to make sure you add in exercises and other things that's going to make you the best bass player you can be. So definitely try to aim. It gets kind of hard the more you learn. Sometimes I have problems. Like, I'll try my hardest to find something that I don't know, but I've been playing bass for a very long time, and every day I've tried to learn something new. So there's a lot of things that I already know. I'm not saying that I know everything. I'm just saying I nowhere near know everything, but it's just sometimes hard to look up videos and look up things to find. But you will find something that you don't know. Like I said, nobody knows everything. So definitely try to find at least one thing that you don't know to improve your bass playing. So that's basically the end of the video. I just wanted to say all this. Hopefully it helps you get better. Hopefully you improve a lot. I know the audio quality, the camera, everything's not the best quality ever, but I just wanted to make a video explaining what goes through my mind as a bass player and how I approach things. I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional teacher. So if you don't learn anything from this, it's all good. Just let me know what I can improve on. And I don't claim to be right about everything either, so I don't want to see anything in the comments about, oh, you explained that totally wrong. You actually do this. That's not what a this is. That's not what a that is. Like, I'm not a professional, so don't get mad. But you should be able to learn from this video if you're a new bass player, and you should be able to learn from this video in general. So thank you for watching. See you in the next video. If you have something that you want me to go in more detail on or explain better, just let me know and I'll make a video on it. Just comment below and leave the suggestion, and I'll definitely make a video on it. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Peace.